Hello and welcome back to Shakesyear. We are getting very close to the end of Edward III, and today we get to hear from the Earl of Salisbury in Act 5, Scene 1, which is the only scene in Act 5. And things are kind of wrapping up in terms of the war. The English seem to have basically prevailed in this. They captured King John. There was a little bit of like nanny nanny boo boo sort of stuff going on with him when Prince Edward was like, no, you have to take your prayer book back and all that sort of thing. But before they're able to completely wrap things up, we need to get that side of the army back with the other side of the army. So Act 5, Scene 1, we're with the other side of the army, which is King Edward III, who's outside Calais, the city that he's been laying siege to. And he had said that 6 merchants, the 6 wealthiest guys, have to come out naked and subject themselves to the king's whims, which finally they do at the very end. And he's like, no, you've waited too long, so let's draw and quarter these guys. And Queen Philippa is like, but if you're going to be the King of France, don't you kind of need some subjects? So maybe show them a little bit of mercy. And the king's like, okay, fine, whatever. I'll do that. And then we had Copeland coming in with David, the King of the Scots, and Copeland saying, I'm the one that captured him, and here he is. And they're like, so why didn't you hand him over to the Queen when you actually caught him when we told you to? He's like, oh, I didn't mean to offend anybody. I said I was going to give him over to the King. So here I am giving him over to the King. I came all this way specifically to give him to the King. And King Edward's like, yeah, I appreciate his bowing and scraping to me, that sort of thing. So sure, we'll take him, and yeah, you get to be a knight, whatever. But then the Earl of Salisbury comes in, and remember, he was actually kind of sort of captured by Charles, the Duke of Normandy, and there was the whole back and forth of Charles had given him a passport, but King John wanted to kill him, and then King John is finally like, okay, we'll honor the passport, but, deliver a message to King Edward that we're about to kill Prince Edward, because take a look at what's going on. So anyway, the Earl of Salisbury comes in at this point, and King Edward is like, hey, how you doing? How's it been? What's the news? And the Earl of Salisbury is like, yeah, it's mostly good, though I do have a little bit of bad news for you. And King Edward is like, what happened? Did my son get into trouble? And the Earl of Salisbury says, he was, my lord, and as my worthless self, with 40 other serviceable knights, under safe conduct of the Dauphin's seal, did travel that way, finding him distressed. A troop of lances met us on the way, surprised, and brought us prisoners to the king, who, proud of this, and eager of revenge, commanded straight to cut off all our heads. And surely we had died, but that the Duke, more full of honour than his angry sire, procured our quick deliverance from thence. But ere we went, salute your king, quoth he, bid him provide a funeral for his son. Today our sword shall cut his thread of life, and sooner than he thinks we'll be with him to quittance those displeasures he hath done. This said, we passed, not daring to reply. Our hearts were dead, our looks diffused and wan. Wandering at last, we climbed unto a hill, from whence, although our grief were much before, yet now to see the occasion with our eyes did thrice so much increase our heaviness. For there, my lord, we did descry, down in a valley, how both armies lay. The French had cast their trenches like a ring, and every barricado's open front was thick embossed with brazen ordnance. Here stood a battle of 10,000 horse, there twice as many pikes in quadrant wise, here crossbows and deadly wounding darts, and in the midst, like to a slender point within the compass of the horizon, as 'twere a rising bubble in the sea, a hazel wand amidst a wood of pines, or as a bear fast chained unto a stake, stood famous Edward, still expecting when those dogs of France would fasten on his flesh. Anon the death-procuring knell begins. Off go the cannons with that trembling noise did shake the very mountain where they stood. Then sound the trumpets clangor in the air, the battles join, and when we could no more discern the difference twixt the friend and foe, so intricate the dark confusion was, away we turned our watery eyes with sighs, as black as powder fuming into smoke. And thus I fear, unhappy have I told the most untimely tale of Edward's fall. So Salisbury shows up feeling like he has to say that Prince Edward has died, because he at the beginning of this, he's talking about how he was captured by Charles, the Duke of Normandy, and the little back and forth where King John wanted to kill him, but Charles fought to let them be able to pass through, but King John was like, haha, we're going to get your son. And as they were leaving, they came up on this hill where they saw the area where Prince Edward was surrounded. You know, we remember he was surrounded on all sides by the French. And Salisbury stuck around long enough to see the battle start and see it get really bad, but then couldn't watch it anymore and was sure, based on the numbers and, you know, so many French and so few English, that he tells King Edward, you know, your son died. Pretty sure your son died. And Queen Philippa does not take this news very well. She's like, what? My son died. And of course, Edward is going to have some things to say about it, but we will get to hear those things in tomorrow's monologue. So I will see you then. Mwah.